Hello everyone, hope you're all keeping well, and croeso welcome to this brief introduction as to what will happen for session 3, which is reading week, which is next week beginning Monday the 12th of February. So before we get into the focus of the reading week, as a quick recap, last week we discussed the following areas. So we as a group considered potential aims and purposes of education, for example. We thought about different definitions of inclusion and how possibly not having a single definition can lead to inconsistent practice. We started to introduce some examples of labels, and we will follow up with these in the future in terms of the potential impact. Is it a positive, for example, to have a label because your need has been identified and therefore you will receive support? Or is it a negative because there is a stigma attached and people see you and have lower aspirations of and expectations for you? And we also looked at the lesson plan template for the in-class test, and we talked a little bit more about how the in-class test will work next month in March. So the focus of this week then is to consider special schools. So you're going to consider special schools and whether special schools still have a place in an inclusive education system, or whether such settings actually promote exclusion and segregation of some learners. In addition to the purpose of special schools, you're going to consider, are there potential advantages for a learner of attending a special school setting? For example, do staff have better training and knowledge? Is there access to particular support equipment, for example? You will think about potential disadvantages for a learner attending a special school setting. So, for example, many of these are at some distance from home, therefore learners have to be transported to and from school, which can impact upon building friendships in the local area. And you're going to think about a single special school setting, which is Ysgol y Deri in Penarth near Cardiff, which is the biggest special school in the UK. So, as a reminder then, week 3 is a reading week. We don't have a taught session on campus on Monday the 12th of February, but for this week we do have the following. So on Canvas you will see some activities to engage with at your own pace and time during the week. You don't have to do these on Monday, but if you can please take a look at these before we meet for our next session the week after, that would be great. We also have a drop-in session opportunity. Again, this is not compulsory. You do not have to attend if you don't want to. But the drop-in session will give you the opportunity to ask any questions or share any concerns you have relating to the module and the in-class test. And this drop-in session will be on Monday the 12th of February in our usual room, Fulton House Seminar Room 6, and our usual time slot between 1 and 3 if you want to attend in person. If you want to come along but you'd rather attend remotely, then there is a Zoom link which is posted on Canvas. If you do come along, you don't have to stay for the full 2 hours. Equally, if you do come along, you don't have to turn up at 1 o'clock. So you could, for example, pop along on Zoom between 2:30 and 2:45 if that was more appropriate for what you want to discuss. So, set in some context then, UNICEF back in 2023 suggested that approximately 240 million children globally have disabilities, and as we can see on this slide, many of these learners will lack access to education. There will be a wide variety of barriers that these learners face, and these could link to discrimination and stigma, for example, which means many of these children are denied the opportunity to take a full part in their communities, to enter into the workforce, and decisions may not be made with their consent. So thinking about special schools in the UK, the graph on the left of the slide shows information taken from MenCap, a mental health charity, back in 2022, and looks at differences in terms of the number of learners with an additional learning need or special educational need and disability or additional support need, and whether they are taught in special schools or not. So we can see there are some differences in patterns across the 4 countries. So England, for example, 9.3% of learners taught in a special school. Northern Ireland, slightly higher, 9.8%. Lower in Wales at 5.3% and about 6.8% in Scotland. So what we can see is that just over 90 to 95% of learners with some form of identified need are taught in mainstream schools in the UK. Therefore, it is a minority that is taught in a special school. So last week we talked about definitions of inclusion, and we said potentially many definitions of inclusion in education can be underpinned by the following statement. Education should include everyone, with non-disabled and disabled people, including those with additional learning needs, learning together in mainstream schools, colleges and universities. So as you go through the activities this week, I'd like you to think a little bit about these statements on the board. Are mainstream and special schools in competition with each other? Are they opposed to each other? Or are they both parts of an inclusive education system? Do you think that special schools should still exist in such an inclusive education system? And finally, if special schools were all shut down, do you think their practice could be replicated across all mainstream settings? So this week there is a particular task that I'm going to ask you to look at, which is to watch a video about ysgolyderi, and you will see the link on Canvas and also on the next slide. And as you watch the episode, I'd like you to keep the following ideas in mind and make some notes ready to post onto Canvas later. So I'd like you to think, what are your initial impressions of the pupils, staff and parents that you meet in the video? Do they seem happy? Do they seem content? Do they seem to feel supported? I'd like you to think about, what are your impressions of the school environment? So are there particular resources that you note? How is the indoor environment set out? What about the outdoors? I'd like you to make note of any practices or strategies that the school uses that you feel are noteworthy. The next 2 points, we will pick up on these when we meet in class the week after, about the medical and social models of disability. But I'd like you to think about, does ysgolyderi promote inclusion? So as you'll see, many of these learners are bused in or transported to the school from some distance to home. So in one sense they are segregated from their peers and their local mainstream schools, but through attending this setting, are they being included? And finally, having watched the video, I'd like you to think, is there anything there that mainstream schools could learn from special schools such as ysgolyderi? So on this slide, I've put some links to some videos, and you will see these links on Canvas as well. So the first one in particular that I'd like you to watch, which is a special school one, which is looking at ysgolyderi. The other 2 links, I will mention them on following slides, and I'd like you to watch these or dip in and out of them if you feel you have the chance to do so and the time to do so. But it's only the first one about ysgolyderi that I'm specifically asking you to watch. So we will look at different pieces of legislation together in session 6, and 2 of the key ones we will mention will be the ALN Code for Wales and SEND Code of Practice in England. And both of these pieces of legislation set out that learners should be supported up to the age of 25. On the previous slide, there is a link to a documentary called Life Begins Now, which follows a group of young people who are just about to graduate from Derwin College in Gobowen, which is on the kind of Shropshire North Wales border. And again, there are many debates as to the appropriateness of such provision and whether this is inclusion or not. Now, if you want to watch that whole video, it's 59 minutes long. However, you can see at the bottom of the slide here, and again this is on Canvas, there is a link to a short 2-minute preview which gives you a snapshot of the learners in the video. And then potentially you might want to think about adults. Now the third link on the slide takes you to a documentary entitled The Strangest Village in Britain, which focuses upon the residents of Botton in Yorkshire, which was one of the first Camp Hill communities to be established. Now this is a bit of a random documentary in that it was filmed for a Swedish TV station, therefore it has Swedish subtitles, so please try and ignore those. Now, Camp Hill communities are residential communities and schools that provide support for education, employment and daily lives of adults and children with developmental disabilities, mental health problems or special needs. Now again, this documentary is quite lengthy, it's 50 minutes long, so if you do decide to watch it, again it is quite thought-provoking in terms of what this suggests about notions of segregation and inclusion. However, if you don't feel you have time to watch that one in full, then there is a link here to a shorter 16-minute video clip to a different Camp Hill community, this time in Ireland. And it's really interesting, I think, in this short clip, listening to one of the volunteers at the centre, Arnaldo, where he talks about how working in this setting or volunteering in this setting has made him think more about inclusion. Also for this week, if you get a chance, or if not the week after, then I'm going to ask you to take a look at this brief extract from Shaw et al. At the bottom of this slide. Now this was written in 2017, so we're nearly 7 years ago now. However, I'd like you to take a look at that extract and think about what that means in terms of special schools. So, having read the extract in the previous slide, followed up with some further reading if you want to, thinking about what you've watched in terms of the videos, I'd like you to think about the 5 questions below. So, what are the advantages for a learner with ALN attending a special school? What are the potential disadvantages of attending a special school? Equally, what are the advantages for a learner with ALN attending a mainstream school? And what are the disadvantages for a learner with ALN of attending a mainstream school? And then finally, this is quite a big question really, and this is maybe one where there is no one right answer. I'd like you to think, should learners with ALN be taught in mainstream school or special school? And where possible to justify your answer. And there is a link there to a Padlet. Now this Padlet is also noted on Canvas as well. So during the week, as I said, you have the opportunity to drop in either in person or remotely to get some advice about the module and the in-class test assignment in particular. There is one video to watch in terms of Ysgolhaderu and a couple more to watch if you would like to follow up on those. And then there are some points to reflect in terms of what you see about Ysgolhaderu in the video and what you think are the advantages and disadvantages of learners attending mainstream or special schools with an ALN, and a Padlet to post those two on Canvas. So please do enjoy reading week. I don't think the weather is meant to be brilliant next week, but hopefully there are some at least some dry days to get out and about. If you do want to pop along to the drop-in session, either in person or on Zoom, then I'll see you on Monday. Otherwise, enjoy your reading week, and I will see you in our session after that, which will be session 4, Monday the 19th of February.